Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. Today we're going to be diving in on sharks.
And you are?
I'm Liz Taylor, uh, ocean explorer and entrepreneur, and you are?
Oh, and I am Sylvia Earle, also an ocean explorer, explorer in residence, National Geographic, founder of Mission Blue, and I'm an ocean elder. An ocean elder. I'm part of the team.
Awesome. So the last time we talked about submersibles and how they provide the gift of time for people to explore below scuba diving depth. And we've also talked about living underwater with habitats and how those also give us an opportunity to really get to know fish on a personal level
Hmm.
and to spend time with them. Um,
Go deeper, stay longer.
Go deeper. It's almost like being in a terrestrial biologists. They use a blind along the edge of the forest or a water hole
Yeah.
to spend really meaningful time to get to know the animals there. And so that's where submersibles and um, habitats come in really useful.
As they say, our business is going under. Ah ha ha.
All right. So, using those techniques we've learned about on the land, we've really been able to get to recognize fishes. And today we're going to talk about some fish that have been around for 450 million years.
Long time.
And are some of the most misunderstood and feared fish in the sea, the sharks.
Right. Used to think the only good shark is a dead shark, but actually the only good shark is a live shark. And more about that soon. Get into it. Let's dive in. Oh, but first, remember, the
Earthrise, the world is blue. Oh,
world is, uh, it's very, very blue. The world is blue. There it is.
thank goodness. All right, the world is blue.
Dive in. This
Yeah.
is the moment.
So, many of us, many people out there today are struggling, wondering, what are we going to do with our kids when we have to be going to school and going to work? And you did this a long time ago when I was really small, and you were just graduated and
Got my degree, my PhD
got your
from Duke.
PhD, and you were working at the at what was then the Cape Hayes Marine Laboratory.
With Eugenie Clark, who's known as the Shark Lady.
Yeah, here you are with her and a nice big set of jaws.
There's Bill Mote to Jeannie's left. The Cape Hayes Marine Laboratory became the Mote Marine Laboratory, and the guy in the lower left of the image, as you look at it, is Perry Gilbert, who was known to his colleagues affectionately as the Great White Shark.
Good heavens.
And those are great white shark jaws that we're looking at. It was actually at the Cape Hayes lab that the first great white shark taken in the Gulf of Mexico was recorded. And sadly, those are the jaws.
That is sad. But when I was small, I would often be taken to work with you there at the Cape Hayes lab.
6 years old.
And this is one of the enclosures where the sharks were, brought in and kind of worked with a bit. And I was often sent out to play with the sharks.
Yes, you
There were
were.
no color, it wasn't coloring books. It wasn't, play with the ball. It was play with the sharks.
Don't do TV. No.
No. And
This
so
is better.
so happily, we'd go out into this nice little enclosure. And these are the sharks that I used to play with. They're the wonderful nurse sharks.
Yeah, they
And
are sweet.
and they're just wonderful animals. They'd come right up and want kind of sit on my lap. There's a little platform I'd climb in, and they'd come cruising over and sit down and have their heads scratched, and just great animals. And there we are with that great white shark logo again.
Yeah, that became the symbol. Jeannie worked on many different kinds of fish, but best known perhaps for great white sharks.
And then later on there was this
Oh yeah,
Jaws.
changed the way people regarded sharks. I mean, until then, well, they were, afraid of sharks, I guess, but Jaws just really caused this terror. Even to go in the bathtub caused panic among some people.
Well, when we went to see Jaws in the theater, I think we were the only ones there that were kind of feeling bad for the fish.
Yeah,
And it was one of those sad things, but it's really
you knew
very
better.
I did, but it's simple to see how a shark can make a mistake. A person swimming at the surface looks a lot like a seal. So I don't really call them shark attacks as so much as I call them a fish bite accident.
I like that.
And But here's one of these big smiley guys.
Think of how many people bite sharks
Oh, I know. They're just
today. I
being
mean,
devastated all around the world.
millions of sharks are taken by people, but how many bites of sharks? I mean, half a dozen maybe a year.
And here's our friend Amos.
He's known as the big animal.
He is, but this is about a 16-foot great white shark. But and his friend is taking a picture of him, taking a picture of the shark. And
But what about the picture that Amos got?
but the picture that Amos got really shows us what a great fish they are.
Oh, that's a smiley shark. I mean, fish are friends, not food, right?
That's right.
Oh, another
But
nice face.
but in the and just really in like the last, I don't know, less than 100 years, we've really wiped out so many species. This is an oceanic white-tip shark.
That's happened in the last 3 or 4 decades with long lining for shark fins, a new market for sharks that didn't exist until literally about the 1980s, when they were promoted as an underutilized species. Let's go get them. And Asia had a market for the fins, but not until marketing really got going on a global scale.
Right.
It's out of hand now.
It's completely out of hand. I'm going to show this little video if possible.
Yeah. Now this is off of the coast of Costa Rica, Cocos Island. It's one of the sharkiest places on the planet, and still is, despite the fact that a lot of long lining has taken place there to take the sharks for their fins. But it has been protected by Costa Rica now for some years. But the whole point of this is, look at the action. This is normal. This is what a healthy ocean should look like.
And the sharks are more valuable alive than dead.
Oh, absolutely. They're feeding now on the small fish that are, in turn, have fed on zooplankton that is fed on phytoplankton. Capturing the energy from the sun, generating oxygen, creating food. This is the carbon cycle in action, and it isn't just the sharks. You see a tuna fish zooming by once, so there goes one. And up at the surface, see the little fish?
The little
boobies. Yeah,
boobies, little bird feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's having fun except the little fish that are part of the system. And part of the reason there are a lot of little fish is there are a lot of creatures that cannot get to the phytoplankton. There's no way that a shark can eat phytoplankton, but they rely on the small fish as the the middlemen.
But this is what's happening now.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Around the world.
We see the way we're seeing all those little fish in that picture. Here we're seeing sharks taken by people.
And it's like clear cutting the ocean. We're talking on the order of 100 million sharks taken by us every year.
Every year.
Every year.
It's shocking.
It's a wonder that there's any sharks left. And in fact, so many places where I used to see sharks commonly, I mean, on every dive, you know it's a healthy ocean if you see sharks. But I see very few anymore. That image from Costa Rica, from Cocos Island, is the exception, not the rule.
It really is. But as what you're saying, sharks have been around for many millions of years, and they come in so many different shapes and sizes, from this gargantuan whale shark all the way to sort of the palm-sized lantern shark that live in deep water.
Deep sea.
Very deep
has
sea.
Some bioluminescence about it.
But the really neat thing, I think, today is the biggest sharks that we have out there are the ones that eat some of the smallest items in the sea.
That's right. They do take up some phytoplankton and zooplankton and sometimes small fish. But one other thing about whale sharks, actually about all sharks, is that they are distinctive as individuals. But you see it clearly with whale sharks, that everyone has a different arrangement of spots. I think that's one of the coolest discoveries, that you can identify everyone without a tag. Tags help to determine some other things, but to know individuals just using a new computer program that was devised to be able to map stars has been applied to looking at the spots on individual, whale sharks.
Whale sharks, yeah. And we do know from the fossil record that there were much bigger toothy sharks. Here's an example. Just look at the size of this tooth. This is, the lantern shark, the size of my hand. Well, so is this tooth. Right?
Yeah.
Just an amazing array of things,
Megalodon.
you know, these big fish just eat little plankton today. And here's a
Megamouth.
mega mouth. He has bioluminescent lips and lives in the deep sea, but he has these little denticles instead of big teeth. But here's those big teeth again, and one of the really interesting things to come from looking at the sharks alive is the fact that they have these rows of teeth that allow them to replenish teeth that might be dislodged or broken off, and throughout their life they're always replacing teeth.
Wouldn't you like to be able to do that?
It's true, and you know, one of the really interesting studies going on right now is trying to figure out how do the sharks do this, in hopes that one day perhaps we can regrow human teeth and you know, avoid some of the more painful dental procedures out there that we go through.
My brother's a dentist. He probably wouldn't like to hear this.
No.
Yeah. Put him out of business.
But I mean, the adaptation in sharks are really interesting. Here's a hammerhead shark, and you can again see those little rows of teeth. And you know, I have to tell the story. You know, we were diving off the coast of Tonga.
Yep.
And coming back to the pickup boat, and I was flippering along. I'm carrying all the camera gear and the algae samples and whatnot.
Sherpa.
I was
You're
the
underwater Sherpa.
subsea Sherpa, yeah. And she's with her one camera clicking off a few additional shots, and we, you know, get back into the boat. And she goes, "How about that hammerhead?" And I'm like, "What hammerhead?" And she goes, "The one that was on your flippers the whole way back to the boat." She goes, "It was as bigger than you were." And I never saw it.
He was just friendly.
But it was just curious. Like a big curious fish. Didn't bother me at all.
Only after the fact when you learned he was there.
Yeah, and bigger than me. But interestingly enough, they're one of the shark species that schools, which is just a phenomenal thing to see if you're a diver.
It is. I've seen this at Cocos. I've seen it in the Galapagos.
In the flower garden banks.
The flower garden banks and off the coast of Mexico in the Gulf of California. Yeah.
They're just beautiful to watch these guys. And again, they're not out to get us, but they're just schooling around. But
they migrate over fairly long distances. In
Yeah.
fact, the same sharks in the Galapagos are the ones apparently that go back and forth to Costa Rica a long distance. We know this by getting to know individual hammerheads, but also by using tags and allowing, like tagging a bird.
One of the problems comes in that when they're, you know, schooling like this, it makes them particularly vulnerable to long lining and you know, fish nets and other kinds of things. And you know, the unfortunate truth is that so many of them are collected merely for their fins.
Yeah, for that delicacy, shark fin soup. Oh, it just is so frustrating. If people really know, if they understand how beautiful sharks are and how important they are, and they're not out to get us. Oh, by the way, you don't make the ocean safer by eliminating sharks. In fact, you're making the ocean and the planet less safe by taking out these amazing, important, beautiful animals. So it's time to think differently about sharks.
It truly is.
And Peter Benchley, who wrote Jaws, was so sad when he realized what a terrible thing had come about as a consequence of his great story. And he and Wendy Benchley and the whole family were dedicated to saving sharks.
Yeah.
And we need to talk about a shark savior who's with us today.
Yes, we're going to be joined today by our friend Cristina Zanado, and she is going to be joining us. Oh, there she is! Yay!
Hi, Christine.
So she's just a wonderful example of what one person can do. We all have that power of one. We can do one thing, and
the one thing that Christine does is save sharks, save the sharks, and she does more than that. She gets the kids in the Bahamas, and I think inspiring kids and grown-ups too all over the world. Oh, I can't wait to hear. Let's hear from Christine.
Well, I really like to. I'm going to take one more slide here. Can you tell us what we're seeing here, Christina?
Hello. Hi, Sylvia and Liz, and thank you for having me. These are hooks that I removed from a group of sharks. I call them my babies, a group of my sharks that I work with, Caribbean reef sharks, on one dive. It was a very successful dive. This was one dive, yes.
Wow.
So at the end of the dive, those are the hooks I was able to remove.
I'm really impressed.
I was very impressed. Usually it's one, maybe two hooks, but at that time were like 5 hooks. That'd be a hard one to remove.
Yeah, right.
But if anybody could do it,
you could do it. But this is shocking, right? Ah,
It's a shark.
so
That is a shark hook?
yeah, it's a shark hook. It's terrifying.
Oh,
But
wow.
we've got a few little video clips that I'm going to show, and I would like it if you could kind of tell us what we're going to be seeing here.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what you're seeing right now, this is actually Grandma, and I work with these sharks out in the wild. I wear a suit because I carry food with me, so it's a protective suit for accidental bites, what I would compare to a beekeeper suit. So if I don't work with the sharks or handle them or remove hooks, I don't wear the suit. I go scuba diving with all species of sharks without the suit. But in this case, a Grandma just kind of like comes in for a rub, and the suit is very soft to the touch. This is a relaxed state. The shark goes in voluntarily. This girl is a foggy eye, and it's named after the fog in her eye. We think she's half blind in it. And she has a special story. She started to come in and allow me to pet her only after so many years, when I was actually be able to remove a very unique hook out of her. And I think there is a video about that. And so after I removed the hook, all of a sudden she allowed me to pet her and to come in. The sharks decided to come in and lay on my lap, and then decided to swim away like Grandma did whenever they want.
And I think we were talking earlier, and you said that some of these sharks, you've become, friends with them for, like over a decade. Is that?
Yes, I know each and every one of my sharks. They have very different visual features, like your face and Sylvia's face, and to me they're blonde and brunette like everyone else. And so it's a group that is resident, and then there's a few sharks that come and go through the seasons. And so what I do is I collect images of them, and I collect specifics of their dorsal fin, their pectoral fins, their tail. So they all measure. We do photogrammetry measuring, so we measure how much they grow up. And then after they demonstrate that they stay in a site for about 6 months, we start naming them. And some of the girls, both that you saw, Foggy Eye and Grandma. Grandma's been in the area for 12 years. She just went in front of the camera right there. That was Grandma. Yeah. And so this is a hook removal attempt. It doesn't always look very nice. Animals are not in tune with sitting there and suffering the pain, so they want to swim away. But what the sharks do that is amazing is they keep coming back, and they keep allowing me to try over and over and over again. And that to me is amazing. And
this is another one, huh?
This is Foggy Eye. This is Foggy Eye. The day that her and I changed our relationship. Before then, she didn't allow me to pet her, but that day I kind of like went in and did a big dentist job. There was a hook inside her throat, and I could kind of see it. This is a product of 40 minutes of work. So for 40 minutes, she allowed me to try. For 40 minutes, she kept coming back and lay in my lap and allowing me to try to remove the hook, and kept coming back. And like I said, they feel pain, they'll run away. My dog will come up with a thorn in the paw, but as soon as I go to remove the thorn, it's like, you're going to hurt me.
Right.
So,
and more reason for the beekeeper suit.
Yes, and so,
yeah.
I graze by her teeth, and there's obviously an inherent dangers in doing that. So yes, we wear all the suits because we're working in such a close proximity with the.
That is
completely
since
sensible.
that day,
that is
started
so
to come
beautiful.
in. Sorry.
No, it's just wonderful to to see that relationship with a big fish like that, and to know that that they really do come to recognize you. And I think we saw a grouper slide by there as well. So these.
You got to know that grouper, did you?
Yes, I had 3 groupers. One was called Peanut, and then there was a secret agent, and then the Whisperer. And all interacted on the very different personalities, all of them. Peanut was after the size of the animal. She was so we call her Peanut. And then the secret agent used to be always behind your back, like watching you from behind. So you have all these videos, like I didn't know there was like a 4-foot grouper like right behind me. And the Whisper used to hang behind your ears. And I always said sounded like she was like, drop the fish, and like whispered in my ear to drop the fish.
You
But
know, it's surprising to so many people to know that you can identify individuals by their face, by their behavior. You know, they understand it with cats and dogs and horses and things, but they just somehow think that fish are all alike, and also that they don't feel pain, but you know they do. I
they
mean,
do.
They
They feel
absolutely
a lot
do.
of pain. They struggle to eat. Their jaws become swollen and infected.
yeah,
They I watch them when they have a hook. I watch them diving down in the sand and smacking their face into the sand,
Yeah.
trying to remove, what is fastidious or bothers them. I remember Grandma had one that had it's gone from the mouth, so chances are I had not caught her mouth, and it was dangling in between her gill slits. But I
oh,
couldn't see the hook, I could only see the wire, so it was very hard for me to try to remove the hooks. I didn't want to rip her gill slits, and unfortunately it took me 2 months before I could remove it. In those 2 months the wire just rubbed her entire side raw.
Oh, so
And
sad.
when I was able to remove the hook, and that's the amazing thing about sharks, the things that we need to learn from them, her skin healed in less than 2 weeks. Her
wow.
entire side
So
healed in
again,
2 weeks.
more reasons why they're more valuable alive than dead.
Even for
Absolutely.
selfish reasons.
Yeah. I think we've
Where
got,
we have sharks, we have fish. In the Bahamas, the sharks are protected, and we don't have long lining and we don't have drift nets allowed. Thanks to
But
the work of the community and the government and the people and Dr. Samuel Gruber, where we have sharks, we have amazing population of fish, all the way down to the sea cucumbers and the trumpet fish. And when the sharks disappear, I've been in this ocean in the same place for 26 years. I call it dive site fidelity. So I am maybe not an expert on the oceans of the world, but here I can see, it's like, oh, wow, this is missing. And all of a sudden I can see a catastrophic effect just by observation. Say, well, when I first came here in 95, trumpet fish used to be everywhere. When everybody became excited about seeing a trumpet fish on it, I was like, yeah, the 20th trumpet fish. And then for a while, we had problems with long-spine sea urchin, the diademas, and the trumpet fish disappeared. And, you can't make some of the connections, and it requires all of a sudden. And then the sea urchins made their reappearance, and the trumpet fish is making a reappearance, and the sea cucumbers are making a reappearance, and it makes you wonder.
everything connects.
they all connect.
But Christina, it's because of people like Gruber, like you, who continue to make it known that it's important to protect the ocean and the animals who live there and the whole system. Because it's only, you have to constantly be on your guard. There are those who will try to reverse those policies. Longlining is constantly, somebody wants to go out there and resume the fishing, but you're right that it makes such a difference when you really stand firm and protect the ocean. The rewards
And
are enormous.
the other thing is, some of us might have elected not to eat animals or fish or whatever it is, but there's a huge amount of population in this world that still depends on fisheries. And what people need to realize is the healthier the shark population, actually, the healthier the fish population. And so those people that are not privileged enough to have different food choices, that maybe still rely on the fishing industry, like the people who live in Polynesia and Fiji, actually benefit from protecting sharks. The sharks are not going to take their fish from the ocean. The sharks have been there for 450 million years and guaranteed that the fish was in the ocean up to now. Some people say, oh, the sharks are taking all the fish. It's like, no, the sharks have been there. They have this beautiful balance. It's the people that are taking the fish.
And I wanted to show this, I think this is the last video that we have of you, but this is the one that you took kind of your first dive after the pandemic quarantine, right?
Yes. Unfortunately, we're back in that quarantine, but this is just after I went back in the water right after 3 months of missing my sharks. And it was like I never left. The sharks were fine. The girls that had been pregnant, unfortunately, had already given birth, so I missed all of that. And the other girls that showed up with all those giant bite marks, which will heal in a couple of days. That means they've been doing what sharks need to do, which is reproduce. And this was This is Stumpy, is one of my biggest girls. She measured 8'10" as well, and she came in for just a cuddle. But there's a lot of things that go with what I do with sharks. You know, people say, oh, well, you feed sharks so they'll come back and eat people when you're not there. And it's like, absolutely not. They just go back and do what sharks do. And the amount of food we bring is very limited. But furthermore, they don't associate people with food. If they'd done that, they would have done that the first day we put a canoe in the water and went fishing. The first fisherman boat attracted sharks, but to this day, sharks do not attack boats all the time when you're fishing. You can go out there in the ocean and you know this, right? You swim, and you don't even know. The sharks are there, but you just don't know they're there. They're
right.
just sharing
like
their
me and the hammerhead, right? It just like followed me along, and it's no problem.
To me, sharks are very tolerant of our presence, and I do believe they're graciously sharing their space with us. And I think that is the mind shift that we need to assume. Yeah, it's their home, not ours.
That's correct.
Right?
We should
and they're gracious
when we go there.
And we need to be respectful of their home, and we need to be respectful of them. We need to start learning about, like you said, there's a shark that fits in the palm of your hand, and there's the biggest fish in the ocean feeds on plankton. And we need to stop collecting them into this one word, shark. And when I say that, everybody hears the music, Jaws, Todd. And it's like, it's saying sharks is like saying birds.
Yeah, it really is. And people, I think when they get to spend time with them, they really do get to know them as individuals, and the kind of that fear goes away.
There's a question that has come in from Evelyn Simon. In that shark video, what was making the squeaky noise? Dolphins. Dolphins were there too. And dolphins and sharks have a mutual respect and tolerance, but I guess one can be food for the other.
That's true enough.
But generally speaking, it's a more peaceable kingdom there than what we have here on the surface among humans.
So I was going to say that we are starting to get quite a few questions stacking up here, and I think what we can do, I'll take some of the questions and we'll get through them, and then I think there's also the option to raise your hand if you want to ask us a live question, and our co-producer Arnold is going to help us out on that regard. So if you raise your hand, he'll call on you, and we'll get through those. But I also I'll start with a few of these questions here. While I'm looking for questions, maybe Christina and Sylvia, if you could say something about the current situation that's going on in the Galapagos at the edge of that World Heritage Site. I mean, it's a grim.
Well, your comments, I really look forward to that as well. But my first visit to the Galapagos was in 1966, and the park had just come into effect. 97% of the land is protected. Only 3% is open for humans to occupy. But they forgot about the ocean. The ocean, right now, it's just the reverse. Even though there's some form of protection for a fairly large part of the inshore waters of the Galapagos, only 3% is safe for the sharks and for the other animals, right down to the sea cucumbers. Sea cucumbers have been heavily exploited. Sharks have been exploited. Tunas, even the endemic grouper, the Galapagos grouper, has been exploited. So I think that the common sense approach, if you really want to protect the land animals in the Galapagos, you'll protect the ocean the same way you do protect the land. How about 97% of the ocean? How about doing that for the whole world? I mean, I can dream. So we need to take from the ocean, but why do we have to take from 97% of the ocean? That's about the ratio that exists now globally, about the same as what now exists in the Galapagos Islands. And they're now being heavily exploited right at the edge of the exclusive economic zone out 200 miles in international waters where there are few constraints on high seas fishing. And there are fleets of fishing vessels illegally out there, not coming into the waters
Not,
of
not
the,
coming into the park proper,
no.
right, but on the very edge of the World Heritage Site.
And the sharks, of course, go back and forth. They don't know where the boundaries are. The tuna's the same way, and the turtles. Anyway, what are your thoughts, Christina?
Well, I think one of the things that we should start identifying is, and like I said, there's actually very good examples. If you protect a certain part of the ocean, the other side of the ocean, you can actually benefit from. I
Yeah.
also do believe that maybe we need to go back to a more organic relationship with our oceans, a little bit what our elders taught us, and a little bit of and again, it's very difficult, right? Because it's very easy for some of us to say, well, I'm not going to eat fish. But in my experience, where I grew up and where I've been and where I am, a lot of population is dependent on the basic fisheries. But maybe they should go back to a more organic level, which is a more a basic way of doing it. And we harvest what we need and we leave the rest to basically reproduce. So diversified fishing. Uh, do not expect the fish that you want to eat all the time, all year round, all throughout the season. So as humans, I think we need to take some steps back and say, well, strawberries don't actually grow in December where I am, where I live. And I accept there's no strawberries. I actually eat apples, and the same with fish. We need just to do this adaptation. But I really do believe 3% is ridiculous when 71% of our planet is water. I think we need to really identify massive areas of protection. Give it some time, very little time. It doesn't take much. During World War II, when the fishing vessel could not coast over the north part of Europe, the entire cod population came back at 90%. 4 years. 4 years during World War II, when they went back to fish, now the cod is gone again.
And it really is about the one thing, these one things that people can do and that can really add up to making an enormous difference.
So another aspect is, however, 4 years is a good start, but it may take 20 years for a shark to be old enough to start to reproduce. The same is true with turtles and whales and grouper also live a long time. It's not like strawberries or chickens that grow fast and that we can cultivate. These are wild animals. We don't know how to cultivate a shark. Not really. Not on a basis that possibly. So we need to think of them as wildlife, not as products, not as something comparable to vegetables, if you will. They're so take such a long time. And when you take them out of the system, you rock the whole system. It isn't just the animals that you extract. It's their part in the system that is also gone missing, that disrupts the system. Far more important alive, no matter how you look at it. And it's the industrial scale extraction, as you point out. It's one thing to feed your family, your community.
Right.
It's another to try to take on a scale that puts shark fin soup in every restaurant in every country around the world, or tuna, or swordfish, or whatever it is.
We don't eat the poke bowl in the middle of the desert.
Or Chicago.
I wasn't even thinking about fishing sharks. I think shark fishing should be absolutely abolished.
Totally
Those animals, shark, turtles, long-lived. I was just thinking about small fisheries like the snappers and things like that.
Well, even snappers, they're top predators. They have a role. They live a long time relative to chickens. If it's protein you're concerned about, they're better choices than wild fish. Period.
So we've got a question. A couple of people have asked us. I know I'm getting to them.
37 questions.
Patrick and Stephanie, they're both asking us, what about Shark Week?
What about it?
Why is it always so negative again, for the shark? And it's a good question. I mean, there is this tendency to sort of, glorify the danger factor, the fear factor.
Yeah.
And I really, it does do a disservice, I think, to these animals because they're not out to get us. Of course, you always say that, like you and I, Christina, we don't have to worry because sharks are man eaters.
We're safe.
We're safe, but no, really, I think again, most of the sort of the negative encounters we have with these fish is really the result of mistaken identity more than anything else. We swim at the surface in murky water, things of that
Well,
nature
I
that
think
happens.
there may be one exception to this is when we have so depleted the ocean of their natural prey, they might be tempted to try anything if they're hungry enough.
Yeah,
And
true.
we might, on some occasions, where around the world, 90% of many of the fish that we take to market have already been taken to market.
Hmm.
They're gone. We really have to give back and make other choices than ocean wildlife. I think that again, individuals, communities, local, that's on a different level. But largely, what you see in markets around the world come from industrial scale fishing.
That's very true.
So some countries like Palau, little island country, they respect the needs and the desires of their local communities to take some fish, but they don't export. And it's 20% of the inshore waters that have I mean, they manage it, but the 80% is left open, wild. So it's 2080. Uh,
Split.
yeah, that 80% is safe haven for all wildlife, and the 20% is managed. But it doesn't mean that any place is just open season on everything all the time. They're really conscious and conscientious about what is extracted and why. And it's not just about seeing a fish and you see a dollar sign.
Right. But
But
it's yeah, what are you up to here?
there are a whole bunch of questions
I
going
know,
on.
I'm looking at that. All right.
There's quite a few questions about, and I think this is for Sylvia, how sharks positively impact the fish population. I noticed like two or three of those questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're getting there.
Well, it's looking at the system that they say in the Arctic that wolves keep the caribou healthy.
Yeah, and the rest of the system as well.
Correct. And when you think what makes the chemistry of the planet function, I mean, in school as kids we learn about our letters and our numbers. We should learn about the carbon cycle. We should learn that photosynthesis captures sunlight, creates food, and then it goes through this complex, diverse spreading of the energy throughout an ecosystem. We're more familiar with what we see on the land, but even there, kids don't learn about why it's important to protect insects and birds because of the chemistry of the planet that keeps us alive. And it's not complicated. It just, you need to dive in, if you will, and learn the basics of
Yeah.
where air comes from, where the oxygen in air comes from. You need to know what air is. I didn't even think about it as a kid. But 20% of air, of course, is oxygen. And it's been generated through the ages, mostly by the little guys in the ocean. And it's being replenished every day by the little guys, little phytoplankton, green things in the ocean and on the land. We respect trees because why? They protect, they generate oxygen and capture carbon. We should protect the trees for that reason in part. And also in the ocean, the forests are mostly small. I mean, there are some big forests like kelp forests and seagrass meadows and mangroves and marshes that have that same function. But it goes into the system. Now, back to why sharks, why whales, why grouper relate to climate change. They capture and hold carbon. When you take them out of the ocean, you're taking the carbon out of the ocean. And we also are disrupting the food web, this nutrient cycle. When we take the big fish out of the ocean, the big trees off of the land. Of course, sharks don't photosynthesize like trees, but they are part of the system. They hold large quantities of carbon. And when they die in a natural circumstance, the carbon goes to the bottom of the ocean. When we take them out of the ocean, the carbon as carbon dioxide and methane gets released into the atmosphere. We've got a big excess of carbon dioxide and methane in the planet's atmosphere right now, which is driving the warming.
Yeah.
And so the link between whales and sharks, grouper, whatever, they not only hold carbon, but they put nutrients back into the ocean that fosters the production of the phytoplankton. And I went to the big economic forum in Davos this year, World Economic Forum. A headline was whale poop, why we need to protect whales. Because whales not only hold carbon, but they put nutrients back into the system that drives phytoplankton, that feeds zooplankton, that feeds the little creatures, that feed the big creatures. It's like a circle that goes round and round. We come in, we take the whales out, and we break those links.
And the sharks.
And the sharks. We take them out, we break those links.
So
kids get it right away. I don't know why adults can't get it in their thick heads as well. We need to do a better job about going back to school, I guess.
Well, and we will. That's
learning the carbon
hopefully we have a
cycle.
lot of kids joining in for these episodes.
Yeah.
But we've got more questions for Christina. Pam is asking us, she's saying, you removed an insane number of hooks from these sharks. Are they a unique type or make of hook? Are they manufactured by a select number of companies, or where do they come from?
I can tell you about that big hook when she
Yeah.
after
I've removed what are called J hooks, which is a traditional shape. I've removed big circular hooks. They come in stainless steel. They come in absolutely like things that never rust. They live forever. They come into regular metal that maybe rusts a little bit. The origin of all of them, I don't know. Some of them are small enough that they tell me they were not directly indicated for the sharks. Technically, like I said, sharks are protected in the Bahamas. There's a huge difference between having a law and enforcing it. It's very difficult to enforce it. But some of the hooks are big enough that make me wonder what the people are doing. A lot of people think that fishing sharks is fun.
Yeah,
I've seen shark fishing as a fun activity for the family, advertised as a fun activity, but it's catch and release. And I'm like, well, I'll go around the corner, I'll catch and release cats. How you feel about that?
Yeah, right.
with a hook in their mouth.
The hook, yeah.
And it's really this concept of like, well, it's just catch and release. It's like, well, if the kid does this with the shark on a boat and then goes home and does the same with a cat around the corner, you have some concerns about his behavior related to the cat. Why can we relate the same behavior that we're having with the sharks? So my sharks collect hooks because they are sharks. And their job is to go when a fish is thrashing at the end of a fishing line, the shark goes in and the job is to clean it out. Oh, this is injured, this is deadly, this is bleeding. And then consequence has the hooks. Some I think are destined to my sharks. So I have all these different hooks. I have over 300 that I've removed in 4 years.
That's incredible. And Cassio is asking us if you've ever taken hooks out of more, larger sharks or ones that might be more aggressive, like a bull or a tiger shark.
No, I only work with Caribbean reef sharks. There's a rule by which I abide, which is one size does not fit all. So the behavior that I play with Caribbean reef sharks and the way I work with them with a suit and even doing is not a behavior that I will display with a different species. Based simply on the strength is as simple as I can pick up a Chihuahua, but I can't pick up my 122 pounds dog that I actually have because that's going to break my back. So it's the same concept. When you work with animals, you still have to take in consideration the animal you're working with.
Yeah, exactly. Just like, the analogy to the different types of dogs is a really good one.
I removed them from nurse sharks. I had a nurse shark, poor thing. He came in, he had like the hook is like all around the nostril, just completely around the nostril. And it was really cool because my buddy Kevin held him and he actually just sat there, almost like knew what we were doing. And then I was able to wiggle the hook out from basically the eyelet. But nurse sharks and Caribbean reef sharks are the sharks I remove hooks from.
Yeah. And Pamela was asking, are there any, have you ever seen any of the hooks that actually do biodegrade over time? It seems that they're so heavy and big that they just persist for ages.
They persist for a very long time. The only time that I've seen a hook falling out is the section where the hook is in is infected so much and the flesh is so putrefied that the hook finally can't sit there anymore and just falls out and usually leaves like a gash or a scar. But I've seen hooks in the one that I can't catch, maybe because they're too small or they're embedded, because the shark skin is very hard. It's a very tough skin. So when they're really embedded, sometimes I've seen hooks lasting for several months before I was able to remove them.
Yeah, I hope people seeing your film and listening to you might think again about putting a hook in the water for the fun of it.
Yeah.
To think that,
yes,
hey, I'm having a good time. Well, the shark is not having a good time at all. I mean, clearly, the
animals are fighting for their lives. They're wasting a lot of energy. I tried to imagine somebody that thinks, oh, that was a great bottle. We have a 2-hour bottle with fill in the blank, a billyfish, a swarfish, a shark, and all that. The animal is not having fun. It's actually fighting for its life. And when you release it, you actually do not know the consequences which have caused the stress on the heart, the stress on the production of oxygen, the stress on the adrenaline. And there's a dear friend of mine, and she's doing the study about when you do shore fishing, right, and you bring the sharks back to the surface, what is the survival rate of those ones that you push back in the water?
Not great. Yeah.
That's a question I get asked quite a lot. How do we know that, catch and release actually is successful? Yeah.
And release.
Torture and release, exactly. We had another question asking, like, do you think that, we know from our own experiences that fish feel pain. Do you think that it's hard for people to understand that they feel pain because they don't really make, a noise in relation to the pain? Like, we know for sure when our dog steps on something or, they let us know about it. They yip, we're like, oh my God, what happened to your paw? But, fish doesn't typically do that, or
some do.
But I have heard many fish vocalize, and of course the grouper makes that terrific drumming noise. But you feel
that is interesting. That is actually an interesting theory. I think it's actually something else. I actually remember growing up with my family. I'm from the Mediterranean, in which there was this concept, oh, don't worry, a fish does not feel pain. I don't know where it comes from, but it
makes us feel better.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just something that has been ingrained in people. It could be that they don't make noise, and a lot of fish make noise. Try to even approach like a soldier fish, or like approach like a grunt. The name of the grunt is because they grunt when you
they grunt. Yeah.
They grunt. I don't know if it's a disconnect, maybe because of the facial expression for most people of a fish is not as identifiable as as a human or another creature. So there's a less of that connection. And this is part of the work I try to do. And I want people to identify sharks as individuals, as creatures. I'm not saying they're puppy dogs. We've been saying that you have to be careful with the sharks, but they're animals and they have feelings. And all they want to do is survive. They don't want to fear. They don't want to fight for their lives. They want to reproduce and do what nature has instructed them to do, which is very important, not only for the oceans, but for us, as Sylvia said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
well, for their own sake, we should respect them.
Yes.
They don't have to be any obvious good to us. They're part of what makes the planet function. That should be good enough.
Yeah, definitely.
That's true.
We need a planet that functions.
I just wanted to remind the viewers that they can also raise their hand and ask us a live question. And our co-producer Arnold will call on you and help us answer those.
Maybe I'll take that as a cue, because I see Diana and Kali have had their hands up forever, waiting to say. So Diana, I'm going to call on you first, and then Kali. So if you would, Diana, if you would unmute yourself, you can ask a question directly if you're still there.
that you had your hand up. Okay. Go ahead, kid. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was wondering if do the sharks or other ocean animals affect if there is other things going on above, like storms?
Oh, are they impacted by storms and things? Good question.
Ah,
Yeah, who's fly?
nice question. Thank you. Who wants to go with that one?
Well, I have been in the Bahamas diving at night with a thunderstorm, so that when the lightning flashed, it was like a strobe light. And we were diving actually without lights, just because we wanted to be like the fish, seeing what the fish see. And it was, they seem to react, but not to be frightened. It's a part of what they grow up with.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like something that's totally unexpected. But they,
I did.
you can hear thunder underwater. Sound carries very well underwater. So I think that the noise sometimes might startle them, just as it would any of us,
That's
and a
interesting.
flash of light, but they tend to go about their own business. They also react to the sound of motorboats. I have seen that with fish while I'm busily watching a big grouper, for example, and a boat starts its engine, and it doesn't. The way you see that the grouper reacts is the eye movement. It just changes, and it does a little jerk of motion,
Shudder.
a little shudder. Yeah, exactly.
Startle.
Just because it's, as I am too, I'm startled when I hear a loud noise.
That was great. I think we'll move to Kali now. Kali, if you are available, please unmute yourself and you can talk directly to the team.
Hi. I was very interested in your discussion when it came to the fisheries and the impact that it's had on shark conservation. And I was really wondering, outside of the little things that we can do at home and obviously signing petitions, but what we can do to help with legislation pertaining to shark conservation on both a domestic and international level. Because at times I feel like I want to be able to do so much more, but I'm limited mainly because I probably don't know how to go about that and make those changes.
Well, I think that these shark tournaments, for example, where you see how many sharks you
The
can kill,
worst.
to encourage legislation, to encourage conservation organizations, to let people know how wrong it is, how it's taking away from everyone when these wild animals are killed just for fun, or even for market. That there should be. I totally agree with Christina. Sharks everywhere, like whales, should be protected fully. They're just too important to allow to be treated as it's fun to go kill them. So let's see how many we can kill, or to take them for their fins, or to take them for any purpose. People have learned to eat sharks, but generally speaking, it's an acquired taste.
Yeah.
And you have to be kind of hungry to want to eat a shark.
Absolutely. And I mean, I was personally appalled when I saw that, the spiny dogfish was described as being an underutilized species and was put on school lunch menus. And I was like, what are they thinking? This is just outrageous,
Right. So I think we have a responsibility, we who have some insight, knowledge, and that would be you asking the question, to share what you know and to make a point of trying to get better protection legislation in the end. But it even starts with educating people who don't know any better.
Right.
It's ignorance is the biggest threat of all.
And it really is, so much can be done. I mean, it gets discouraging at times, but just to kind of keeping on and trying to lead by example, starting off your friends and family and just kind of expand the circle out. But, the choices we make, at the end of the day, it seems that this demand for shark products, if you will, all comes back to consumer choices.
Yeah.
And, so it's really about
Oh,
becoming
shark oil.
it's
eating
shark
it.
oil. Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's just so many crazy. It's like the snake oil salesman. It's completely unfounded. But yeah,
And also the fact that when our numbers were small and the ocean was largely intact, we could get away with taking wildlife out of the ocean as a significant source of food. Today, our numbers are large and the natural world is shrinking, and with it goes our life support system. We have many choices about what we can eat, and we need to think differently about those choices.
yeah,
When you think a grouper may be 20 years old, a chicken never gets to be even a year old before it goes to market,
that's right.
and they eat plants, whereas a
Primarily.
grouper eats a lot of fish. It's a top predator. And anyway, I mean, getting educated about how you can have a lighter touch on the world and still have a very good and happy and diverse source of what you can munch on.
Yeah, and other products. I mean, we see shark products and things like makeup, for
Yeah,
example.
that's true.
And
Cosmetics.
cosmetics.
Mm.
So there's a lot of different areas that
Read
we
the
can.
labels
Yeah, so be a really informed consumer is a great way to start.
and then spread the word.
And
Don't
spread the
keep-
word. Yeah,
Yeah, keep the knowledge to yourself.
be noisy. Yeah.
Well, be nice.
And
but
nice.
Be
Yeah.
nice to the ocean.
Yeah. So do we have any other raised hands out there? Shall I take one or two more questions, and then we're getting close to the top of the hour, so we're going to have to sign off pretty soon. But we could take.
Yeah. Carolyn also has been waiting for a really long time. So Carolyn if you can unmute yourself, you can talk directly to the three panelists. Maybe she's gone away. Let's see if Ray is there. Ray's been waiting for a long time also. Ray, are you there? Can you unmute yourself?
Hello, I am. Thank you all. It's good to see you all.
Oh, hey, Ray.
And, trying to
We know
educate,
this rascal.
people. When I try to educate people on the dire state of the sharks, I think I'm quoting Sylvia when I tell them we've lost 90% of the world's shark population in the last 50 years. And they ask me who was counting sharks 50 years ago. And I'd love to give them some real basis on scientific knowledge on how we come up with this number and really educate people in a good way.
Well, the so-called the FAO, the Food and Agricultural Organization that tracks food and fisheries around the world, collects the numbers. That's how we have some idea of how many were taken before and after World War II. Looking at the fishermen's own records, which are probably an underestimate of how much has been taken. But that's how, with whales, we look at the old whaling logs. We're getting better in today's world, more accurate, more reliable means of calculating the numbers. But you can also go to places that are relatively undisturbed, the way the Galapagos was in the 1950s and 60s, and compare it to today. And the observations that were made by scientists who were lucky enough to visit during that time, as compared to the present time, is, again, it's not precise, but then counting fish in the sea is not an exact mathematical science.
It's true enough.
It takes these broader numbers, but you can see the decline is evident, on every dive you take, especially those of us who've been around diving for a number of decades.
So we've kind of run out of time, so I just wanted to say that we could take one more question. I'd like maybe to direct this last question to Christina.
Yeah,
And-
let Christina have the last.
Yeah,
word, yeah.
the last word, and then I'll have to wrap things up. But Otis is asking us, Christina, do you do anything to systematically create little Christina clones?
Oh, please say yes.
Please say yes. How do
Yes,
you work
a
with
lot.
the young kids that you educate and then you bring them along?
Well, I do different things. So I do educational programs on like a Zoom level, visiting schools, talking, but I also do direct training of local Bahamian younger adults. So they start in the 12th and 10th grade and they do the open water advanced rescue. And then once they qualify out of high school, they start working into the dive operations, and I do directly, personally, their dive master and instructor training. And in all of that is involved is obviously the ocean conservation, the shark protection, changing the ways like putting down moorings, going and cleaning, doing beach cleanups and all of that. And it's all based into the local community. So I'm trying to create that. I also have then people that come from all over the world that want to try to do what I do. And I introduce them into this unique world I call it Shark Yourself, in which I say just meet my sharks, enjoy the sharks and all that. And they become more of the ambassadors.
Excellent.
The most amazing part for me is through this program, what happens is I receive people where our common language is English, right? But maybe I don't speak the language that they come from. I've had students from Kuwait, I have students from Russia, from Czech Republic. And what they do, they go back and transition between me and the people that I can speak with in their language.
Fantastic.
And say, hey, I've learned this about sharks. I had people from China, I had people from Japan coming here and doing this, and they go back Singapore, and then they become people that in China promote shark conservation, speaking in Chinese to Chinese people. So
Right.
I do both. I do a direct training and an indirect training through creating these amazing ambassadors who are then become also friends for a lifetime.
That's so wonderful.
We all speak ocean.
We all speak ocean. And you know, it really takes a global community to make a world of difference.
Yeah.
It truly does.
Thank
So,
you.
Thank
You're
you.
a champion.
Yes,
Salute you.
champion. Yes. What is it? This is the shark symbol, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Oh,
So-
yeah.
We're so grateful to you, Christina, for joining us today. And for all of our viewers, you can find out more about her work on Instagram and Facebook, just like we like to follow her. You can do that too. And hopefully go down and visit her with the sharks when things eventually settle into more normal. And I also wanted to thank our sponsors, the Ocean Elders and Medley Media, for producing this conversation with us. And check out all of our social feeds on the YouTube channels and all the .orgs that are mentioned in the conversation, and the video will be available later on for review as well. And we just love doing these every 2 weeks, and I hope you'll let others know about this and about Christina's work and about some of the ongoing things. The next time we'll be talking about whales.
You got whale sharks this time. Next
Yeah,
time, whales.
Next time it's whales. So remember,
We need to take care of the ocean
as if our lives depend on it.
because they
They
do.
do. Bye for now.
Thank you so much.